you. I'd like to ask some follow-up questions in relation to the question Senator McKim asked in relation to the social cohesion measures grant, large projects and national support. I've had a look at the extract from the Grant Connect, and I note the worthy objectives and purposes of the grant, and if I can refer to them: combat Islamophobia and support victims, develop communications to combat Islamophobia and racism, mitigate the harms of mis and disinformation and narratives that impact communities, and it goes on, and they're all noble objectives. Has a similar program been undertaken through the Department of Home Affairs with respect to what I'm sure all senators are seeing in the community, the terrible increase in anti-Semitism and the targeting of our Jewish communities in relation to anti-Semitism? Is a similar program being undertaken by the Department of Home Affairs?
Not specifically as a separate program, Senator, but I guess taking account of two things. One is the entire government approach to funding around this issue across multiple departments, including the Attorney General's Department and our own. Also, the funding that's been provided to the Australian Human Rights Commission to progress the anti-racism strategy. The national level projects that we're pursuing through this package of funding, all of the projects are primarily targeted towards the Palestinian and Muslim and other community as intended, but obviously when you're talking about issues like anti-racism and anti-hate speech, that goes to a broader whole of community conversation which would cover everybody. It wouldn't just be anti-Islamophobia in that conversation.
So I appreciate your response. I appreciate your response, Mr Kirkwood, but again, I'm going through these grant objectives that specifically refer to combating Islamophobia and supporting victims, and again, that is a very, very noble purpose. Why isn't there a similar grant in relation to, and I'll fill it out for you in terms of the terms, because I've got community members of the Jewish community approaching me, as I'm sure other senators here have, who are giving me examples of the most vile anti-Semitism, of Facebook posts, emails, attacks on their families, attacks on their person, anti-Semitism which is dripping with vile hatred. Why don't we have a grant that's providing for combating anti-Semitism and supporting victims of anti-Semitism, develop communications to combat anti-Semitism and racism, mitigate the harms of misinformation and disinformation and narratives that impact communities? And I can give you some examples of those, some of the misinformation and disinformation that is being put out around the 7 October attacks and what actually occurred or did not occur. And also these awful anti-Semitic tropes we're hearing, in some cases disgracefully, from some members of Parliament in other places. Why haven't we got a grant that's specifically dealing with that in the context where there is an absolute explosion in anti-Semitism in this country, and the State of Israel is offering travel guidance to people that they need to be concerned about travelling to this country? Where is the grant for addressing anti-Semitism?
Senator, if perhaps I could help. Home Affairs led on the development of the overall program, which included, as Mr Kirkwood said, the grant that we then administer for the social cohesion impacts. As part of the same package, there was a similar amount of grant for the Australian Council of Jury. It just so happens that that's being administered by the Department of Attorney General. But the package was a package as a whole, targeting both communities.
Ms Foster, I'm aware of the package and I've got it here, and I'll be asking some questions of the Attorney General's Department in relation to that package that is going to the benefit of the Australian Jewish communities, and I full-heartedly support it. Absolutely full-heartedly support it, is going to the basic issue of security at Jewish schools and kindergartens. As I understand it, there's nothing similar to this package in relation to combating anti-Semitism and supporting victims of anti-Semitism, developing communications to combat anti-Semitism and mitigating the harms of misinformation and disinformation. Am I wrong?
If I may add a couple of points, Senator. As part of the overall commitment that government has made, there is, including in the announcement of 19 October, that includes separately to the $25 million grants package I've been talking to, $6 million in funding via the Department of Education on wellbeing in Jewish and Islamic schools. It also includes $3 million via the Department of Health for mental health care administered through the Program of Assistance for Survivors of Torture and Trauma. Also within the $25 million package that I've been talking about, as part of those national level projects, the funding for mis and disinformation is around the conflict. It's not mis and disinformation as it applies exclusively to issues affecting Palestinian and Muslim members of the Australian community. So there's an equal benefit across society when it comes to mis and disinformation.
Mr Kirkwood, sorry to jump in. I think you understand the point that my colleague Senator Scarr is making, which is there's been a specific announcement of a specific package to deal with Islamophobia. There's been no equivalent specific announcement of a specific package to do with anti-Semitism. And that comes in the face of statistics that we have from Victoria Police that between the 7th of October and the 2nd of January, there were 145 prejudice-motivated crimes. Of those, 102 or 70% were anti-Semitic, 12 or 8% were Islamophobic, and the remaining 31 were neither. We have a crisis of anti-Semitism in this country. Why is there a specific package to deal with Islamophobia and no specific package to deal with anti-Semitism?
Can I just jump in here, Senator Patterson? I'm not quite sure that the way you're characterising the programs is correct. I'm sure the officials can correct me if I get any of this wrong, but my understanding is that that part of the $25 million package of support provided to Australian, Palestinian, Muslim and other communities is to deal with Islamophobia. It's not a $25 million package.
I'm not disputing
and
that,
my
Minister.
understanding, as the officials were saying, is that the other measures taken by the government, including the payments made to the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, as I understand it, I may be wrong, but as I understand it, they and other programs also have a dimension dealing with anti-Semitism. So I don't think it's correct to
assist
say
you,
that
Minister,
there's no money going towards anti-Semitism.
To assist you, as we understand it, based on the Grant Connect documents that Senator Scarr has, the Jewish community grants are for physical security, for schools to be upgraded, for shuls to be upgraded, for cameras, for walls, for things to protect them from violence. It does not include, as far as we can see, anything to do with anti-Semitism. I understand in the grants available for the Muslim community, the Palestinian community, they can apply for grants for combating misinformation, they can apply for media monitoring and fact-checking. Where is the equivalent program to the Jewish community if we know, based on these statistics, that anti-Semitism is a far more prevalent problem in the community based on police data?
Senator, I've been hesitant to say this because I prefer to check my facts first, but my memory of the discussions when we were putting the overall package together was that we were working with both communities about what they wanted from the government at that time, but because of the way that they're being handled by different departments, I just don't have complete confidence in that, but we will check with colleagues and come back to you.
I can provide you some direct feedback, Ms Foster. This was raised with me by the Jewish community, who were surprised to learn that there was no equivalent package for anti-Semitism being made available to them. So I wouldn't rest on the evidence that the Jewish community is satisfied with only dealing with physical security if there is support available to deal with Islamophobia and anti-Semitism more broadly.
And Ms Foster, we have an example of a Green State MP in the New South Wales Parliament using that anti-Semitic trope around the use of the term tentacles, even coming from an elected member of Parliament. This is a crisis in Australia, and I would expect that the Department of Home Affairs, and I'll be asking questions of the Australian Human Rights Commission, so if they're listening, I hope they're ready, about what steps are being undertaken to address the largest increase in anti-Semitism we've ever seen. The Jewish community are coming into my office, and I'm sure other elected members, they're giving examples of their children being threatened. The misinformation and disinformation with respect to what actually happened on 7 October is across all the websites across Australia. People are getting, incorrect information. This is an absolute crisis. And I would have thought the Department of Home Affairs would be crafting specific targeted programs to address this rise in anti-Semitism. It's an urgent issue. Is it something the department's prepared to look at further and explore ways in which it can be addressed? I'm not criticising any of the funding that's already been made. I'm very close to the Muslim community in Queensland. I'm not criticising anything. Absolutely not. I've said in this place, raised issues in this place about it. But my expectation is the government is going to do something to address this extraordinary increase in anti-Semitism and protect our Australian Jewish community.
Senator, we hear you and we'll take that on notice.
Thank you.